Heather. So thank you all so much for joining today. I'm Stephanie Montgomery, partner at Build a Brain, Build a Life, Build a Community. And this is our first series in Wired for Learning, Connecting the Dots. So our job here at Build a Brain, Build a Life, Build a Community is really to connect the dots between healthcare and education. And so what a perfect way to start off this learning series with kindergarten readiness, because we're right in the midst of back to school. I know we've got Laura. I'll introduce her in just a minute. She's coming to us from up north in Minnesota. And so they are just getting ready to start school, I think tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I know she's got quite a long to-do list in front of her here. And then Amanda, who's joining us from Georgia, they started about 2 weeks ago, two and a half, maybe 2.5 weeks ago. So down in the South are already in the thick of it. And then I'll be introducing Dana and Tawanda, who are here in the Panhandle with me. I've relocated down to Florida. So we've got some nice representation across our states, but really excited that you took the time to join us, whether you're joining us live or you're listening to the recorded session. And we are focused on connecting the dots between healthcare and education because we believe that healthcare is really a convener for early brain development. Where else are you going to have 98.6% of mothers, caregivers delivering in a hospital setting where you can have that teachable moment, where we can plant that seed to begin to talk with families about the important and critical role that they play in developing their child's brain? And so we work with partner hospital systems, birthing hospitals. We work in prenatal care because we can start those conversations early. And we also wrap around into the pediatric setting because we know those well baby visits are so very important for not only supporting moms and families in this journey, but also if there are developmental delays or something is not developing along a milestone trajectory, we have the opportunity to intervene early. And so that's really important. I know that you'll hear that today as I talk with my four expert panelists about the importance of parents and caregivers being involved and being informed and really serving as that primary first teacher. And if a child isn't developing developmentally as they should, then we have the opportunity to reach out to resources and community agencies to say, hey, I need some help here. Let's check and see, is this something that in time with consultation, we can begin to intervene and really get that child ready to be successful when they start school? Or is this something it's just typical? Children develop at different phases and stages, but just having that information and having that safety net of support is critical so that when children do get ready to start kindergarten, they're well prepared and we can reach their optimum potential. Well, let's get into it. I'm Stephanie Montgomery again. So excited to be moderating this call today. And I really hope if you're joining live that you feel like you're just entering into a conversation with the four of us. I consider all four expert panelists that I have here today as friends and colleagues. And so let me tell you a little bit about each of these ladies. First, we have Amanda Swift, and Amanda will be sharing with you from a dynamic perspective of having served in a school system. So she started out as a literacy coach working in a pre-K 5 setting. And so there she really built strong instructional practices. She fostered a love of reading across grade levels, which I think you'll see consistent across all four panelists today. And then she transitioned into a role at the district level, serving as a literacy coordinator, supporting K-12 literacy initiatives and ensuring alignment from early childhood all the way through graduation and beyond. Now she's transitioned into a new position, and I had the pleasure of visiting with her in Georgia last week, got to tour her beautiful facility that I know our listeners today are going to be very curious about and want to know more. I see a follow-up call coming out of today, but she there is focusing her expertise on the youngest learners at the Early Learning Academy, where she helps guide literacy development for nearly 600 students under the age of 6. And actually, they start at 6 weeks. So it's a really innovative practice that she has going on there. So as she's sharing in just a little bit, I know that'll come out, and then we'll have some time at the end to learn more about that. Next, we have Dana Hodges, who I'll just add here. Dana Hodges does not sleep. So I get email responses about 3:30 or 4 in the morning from her. So she is on the go, and she has dedicated over 26 years of her life and passion to early learning. She's driven by a deep passion for reducing barriers for families, children, and community stakeholders. She's very committed to creating collaborative solutions that ensure our youngest citizens have a strong foundation for lifelong success. In addition to this, Dana is an advocate for strengthening career pathways in early learning, helping professionals navigate and thrive within the system. And so Dana could have written a whole page of accolades because she's very active in the state of Florida and beyond, where she serves as the CEO of the Early Learning Coalition of the Emerald Coast. And along with her is the esteemed Tawanda Brown. Tawanda serves at the ELC at Emerald Coast as the education manager, and she also is an adjunct professor of early childhood education at Northwest Florida State College. She's deeply passionate about nurturing young learners as well, and she believes that children thrive when families, communities, and educators come together in authentic partnership. And I think that's what today is really about, creating those collaborations and partnerships from day one, even prenatal, but day one of birth all the way up through when they're ready to go off to Laura, who is a kindergarten teacher. And I have worked with Laura, and this dates me. Was it your first year that you started teaching that we met?
Maybe like third year.
Okay, it was a long time
It
ago.
was, yeah, it was early on.
Okay, so Laura and I met when I was in Minnesota, and we taught at Harriet Bishop Elementary together. So Laura is still deep in the trenches. She is the face of kindergarten teachers across the nation, and she's going to give us some great perspective. She's taught kindergarten first and second grade, as well as reading intervention. So she understands about those gaps in foundational skills and has served in that capacity. Also, adding to her repertoire, she's a mom of three kids, so she knows firsthand about those learning differences and how they develop along different pathways. She comes from a family of teachers, her mom of 33 years, dad taught eighth grade social studies for 35 years, so they're committed to stay in there, and her sister teaching kindergarten and first grade for 25 years. So she grew up steeped in it and has definitely led the charge with her passion. She also is very focused on working with families and new parenting classes. And actually, that's how we kind of reconnected and are just really recognizing a need to support families and children early on and wanting to know more about what she could do. So she'll have a voice here today. Well, there's lots of, in those joining us as well, there's lots of data and statistics that aren't always encouraging for our youngest learners. Starting kindergarten, there are disparities in the percentages of numbers that we hear about children being kindergarten ready. So we can read in some reports that say up to 64.6% children holistically between the ages of 3 and 5 are ready for kindergarten because they're developing along those milestone trajectories. But then we also read statistics where only about a third of our children, 34.6% of our children, are kindergarten ready. So that leaves a perception in the community to say, well, how are we measuring kindergarten readiness? What does kindergarten readiness really mean? So that's what I want to break down today as we work with children and families and community agencies across our nation. What is the message that we want to share, and how can we ensure that every child has the potential to reach their fullest optimization? So let's start out with this question, and I'm going to start out with you, Dana and Twanda. I know that you're in the same room, so if you want to, both chime in at different times, feel free to do that. But how would you define kindergarten readiness? Dana, we'll start with you.
Hi, everyone. It's so nice to meet everybody. I can't see you, but I know you're there, so it's nice to meet you guys. And I really, when you asked me this question, I took a step back and I was like, do I answer this as a parent? Because I'm a mom, I'm a Mimi, or do I look at it more through the lens of an early learning professional? So I kind of connected the two.
Yeah.
And I would say it's preparing the whole child, not only academically, but socially, and really connecting the systems to help with that child to ensure that when they enter kindergarten, all of those pieces are together. So when I say systems, it takes the parent as the child's first teacher, connecting them to the early childhood teacher, and then connecting them to the school in which they choose to go into in kindergarten. So really connecting all of those systems to help that child not only academically reach those developmental milestones when it comes to language development and pieces of that, but also connecting that social emotional development. So all of that to say, preparing the child, the whole child, not just different pieces of the puzzle, and using the system to connect. That's mine.
Yeah, no, I love it. Tawanda, do you want to add to what Dana was sharing?
Well, I will say that I would kind of echo that. I think having spoken to and worked with kindergarten teachers
Mhm.
in our transition to kindergarten efforts, those self-help skills, that confidence that children need, and they have to be prepared to learn additional, they have to be prepared to go into that academic setting.
Correct.
So making sure that they have developed or are on the road to developing those self-help skills, that confidence, the ability to communicate their needs and their wants
Social skills.
effectively. Yes, socially. So to me, that's a part of kindergarten readiness.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go to Laura next because I know Laura and I have had several conversations just about social emotional development and communication. So do you want to take a stab at what does kindergarten readiness mean to you?
Sure. We always say social skills over flashcards. And so we really hope that at home, parents aren't worried about flashcards and numbers and letters at home before they come to school. We want them to have those social skills. And one of the big things that parents could do is just daily routines. And I don't think people think like, oh, that's getting them ready for school, but it is because school is so routine based. And so kids that are used to following a routine kind of click right into our school routine and feel settled and they're ready to learn. Another thing to do, she was also saying about being an advocate for themselves. They have to be able to say, I have to go to the bathroom. I need a Band-Aid. I didn't hear what the directions were. I need help. Being able to ask for help and speak up. And also just having, being able to function in a group, understanding how to wait in a line or wait your turn. And if you're the only kiddo at home and you haven't had to do that, that's a big change when you come to kindergarten. So I would
Yeah.
definitely say the social skills and not even, of course, social interaction with other students, but even for their just themselves, basic hygiene, just some of the, even just independence is a big part of kindergarten readiness.
I love that. I do. I appreciate that. And I think that'll come back up again in a few minutes. Amanda, you're in a unique position because as Dana, Tawanda, and Laura just shared, you get some of these children early on at 6 weeks. So has your definition of kindergarten readiness changed since being in this new position? And how would you define it to someone asking?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously pre-K is not a requirement, and being in a school and being in a daycare is not a requirement. But instead, the kindergarten environment is really quite rigorous, and the learning that takes place in those environments is rigorous. And I think if we don't spend the time, kind of like Laura mentioned, teaching them routines, how to follow a schedule, how to follow any kind of simple direction, verbal direction, having a plan for your day, like Laura mentioned, just being social, having friends, how do we make friends? All of those things are very essential to being successful in the kindergarten classroom.
Thank you. And Amanda, I think there was a little bit of feedback when you were talking. I don't know.
It
What's
could have
going
been Milwaukee. I am in the school setting right now, so I do have those 600 babies in my
Yeah.
office and in the surrounding area. So it could be part of that. Do you still
bet.
hear it?
A little bit, I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I bet that was it. I bet that was it. Well, one of the next things I want to transition into, so I hear from each of our panelists sharing that this isn't, and I like the way Laura said it, this isn't about flashcards. It's not about having a particular academic skill set already in place. It's really about how children just grow and develop and thrive in their natural environment. It's about those things that we do day to day. It's not about fancy gadgets. It really is being able to socialize and work among others. I mentioned earlier about varying or discrepancies between what does kindergarten readiness mean, what is the interpretation or perception, and why are those percentages differently? Not all states require kindergarten readiness or kindergarten entrance exams. You may see it listed as KEA, kindergarten entrance exams. And so because of that very nature that some states, about 17 states require that, some of those states require that kindergarten entrance exams data is publicly reported. Some of that is used to ensure that things are in place for a child who may need special needs. There's a lot of different reasons that data is collected. But I want to go back to our panelists. In terms of data, why is data important when we look at kindergarten readiness, whether your state does it as required, whether it's locally done formally or informally? So if you don't mind sharing what in your environment, how is kindergarten readiness data used? And, from a parent perspective, why is that important or not? So, Laura, I'll start with you. In Minnesota, it is required by the state that kindergartners are assessed. But I know when we talked the other day, you were right in the thick of doing a kindergarten entrance, conversations, meeting with families and children. So talk to us a little bit about your readiness assessment and then how you use that data.
Yes, that's actually what we've been doing the last 2 days and today, meeting the kids and one-on-one doing the assessment. And it really is academic focused. And so it's hoping that all those other things we talked about are already in place. But I think the data that we take from these initial tests, from these first few days of school starting, really kind of helps us see where kids are at in terms of their readiness to learn and what skills they already have a firm grasp on and what skills need to be solidified. It can help us form intervention groups and know which kids might need a little bit of an extra bump. It can just kind of direct our focus for our curriculum and what we're really focusing on with the whole group, and some areas, pockets of kids that might need an acceleration or a little more enrichment, and kids that might need some of that intervention piece.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. And then we're going to come back to what you do in Minnesota to help in advance of this. So we're going to talk about that next. Dana, how do you use in your position working as an early learning coalition? You're an agency that helps to coordinate. Talk to us about how data is used.
So in the state of Florida and Tawanda, and we just were talking about this morning. We have the voluntary pre-kindergarten program. So that's a free program for any child who was 4 on or before September the 1st. So we are very grateful that we are able to utilize the data that we can extract from that. The children have progress monitoring 1, 2, and 3, and then it does a calculation. And at the end of the year, the child cares, public school, whoever is offering that VPK program receives a designation. We just received our designations for Okaloosa and Walton County, and our providers did amazing. But that is really based on the child and what they are accomplishing within that class, okay? Then we also have in the state of Florida the kindergarten readiness rate, and that is for any child who enters kindergarten, whether they attended the voluntary pre-kindergarten program or they did not. So they have an assessment when they get that, and then that assessment is what draws down on what the kindergarten readiness rate is. But one of the ways that we are very blessed and fortunate is that it aligns with the VPK assessment, aligns with the kindergarten assessment, so we can follow it through all the way through the school. So what we found is that how we use the data is, one, everything that Laura was saying, our education team works with our VPK providers to help with the children's progress monitoring as well as the provider side. But we also work hand in hand with our public schools and our private schools to how do we help those kindergartners be successful throughout the educational career. Third grade reading scores, when those were released utilizing the same tool, the data shows that if you attended VPK, you score higher at that third grade literacy reading level. So there's a lot of data, and sometimes it can become overwhelming at times. But when you actually sit down and look at it, it helps drive what we're doing as a coalition to help our littlest learners be kindergarten ready when they enter into their kindergarten program. But it also helps us build those relationships with the families and the community partners to help our workforce, because this is our workforce for the future. So using that data is really needed in our community to help us with that. Would you want to add to that, Tawanda?
Yeah, absolutely. Once we've received the data, so here in Florida, we have 3 different progress monitors. So 3 different periods of testing. So in a perfect world, once we receive the results from the first progress monitoring, we can begin to jump in and support those classroom teachers, because this information is shared with parents. So families will know how their children's what the children's assessment looks like, what areas they are stronger in, where they need more support. And the goal would be to support, for us in the ELC, to support the teacher as well as the family. There are always things you can do at home to help that child to get where they need to be before the next progress monitoring and on to kindergarten.
Yeah. And I want to get to Amanda next, but I do want to say, Tawanda, you bring up a very good point. One, being very transparent. We're not trying to hide anything from families. Like, we want them to be a partner with us. And so making sure that, again, from day one or even prenatally, every interaction that you're having makes a difference, right? And so I was telling Carlton, he's on the call today, one of our partners here, model what matters. I heard that and I'm like, oh, I love that. Model what matters. And so it's not just about, as Laura said, flashcards, it's the physical development. I know Laura and I were talking about children's ability to be able to open a glue stick or to use scissors. We see some differences there over the years, again, because many of us have been in this 20 plus years. And so it's just some of those things. So it's not just flashcards, it's the independence, it's the ability to persevere, to be able to ask for help when they need it, and then to progress monitor. So it's not, again, just your letters and numbers, but progress monitoring those just skills that they need to be able to interact and to advocate for themselves and be independent in a classroom setting. Amanda, I want to brag on you. When I met with Amanda last week, and we've talked several times, but I had a chance to, I said, I want to see your school. And when we sat down to talk afterward about things like funding and data and things of that nature. So they're in year 3, correct? In this new center. And so still just early on with it, and we're going to hear from her. But I ask about, because she's able to enter children at 6 weeks and then watch them continuity and curriculum, what is she noticing with kindergarten readiness rates? And so the board, had a goal for her and she knocked the top off of it. So I'm not going to steal her thunder, but talk to me a little bit about data. I know you're very data driven, and then some of just very quickly huge incremental gains that you've achieved so far. Amanda, are you able to turn the walkie-talkie off? I wonder if it's interfering, because you've got great stuff to say. I don't want to. It's still staticky. Oh, I know. Any troubleshooting ideas? Because she's like, because we were talking earlier and there weren't any problems, but I do want to hear what she. While she's working on that, and this is all her success. So one of the initial goals, from the board and the district office was that they were at least at 50% kindergarten ready. So again, 6 weeks, 1 to 2, 2 to 3s. Her 3 and 4-year-olds are across 2 different classrooms, depending on where they are developmentally, potty training, independence, things of that nature. Then they go into pre-K. So each year they can add on an additional class based on need. So they're up to 10 or 11, she can correct me, classrooms, and they can continue to add on the following year. And then they go into kindergarten. So 600 children under one roof, all under the age of 6. So that it's very hands-on, 90 staff members there. But I digress. So 50% kindergarten readiness. And so year 1, that was the goal. Last year, she had set a personal goal that they were 75% kindergarten readiness after leaving their pre-K programming. And she said just shy, like just barely missed the 75% kindergarten readiness. And that's just they're just starting year 3. That is amazing to me. One of the things that I attribute that to, one, her leadership and the innovative vision of her school system. Also, the continuity in curriculum expectations, really pouring into those childcare, early learning specialists, parapros, they're all considered part of the team. So when there's professional development and ongoing learning occurring, they're part of that conversation. And they offer specials like music, art, STEM, PE. So they're enriching the lives of their children. Another, and Dana and Tawanda, I know you'll be interested in this, because of the structure of the facility, they're able to house OT, SLP, Babies Can't Wait. So in Georgia, it's called Babies Can't Wait, but it's like your early steps. Help Me Grow agencies can come to one facility. There was an autism sensory room. So it's just amazing opportunities to get everyone on board. Oh, yeah. Okay, let's try that. Thank you.
But see, can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you so much. I'm so sorry, but yeah,
Yay!
you spot on. You spot on.
Excellent. Yes. Well, you were sharing all of the right things. So yes, because of what Stephanie shared, we are allowed to have then a speech person here at the school, an OT here at the school, which the other people on the call and the other people joining us probably know how important that is. We see more and more students coming to us with the needs for enhancing their fine motor skills. And so a lot of our parent workshops actually last year were for all parents of all age students within our building. And that was really our focus. We use a lot of people to just come in and teach them, okay, what can you do at home to strengthen your hand muscles so that you can hopefully grab a pencil when you're in kindergarten and get ready for those next steps. So it has really been essential to have, and we are thankful to have the youngest ones here, because ultimately we are seeing that in our data. So when we expose them to great conversations, we expose them to literacy, we expose them to those social skills like meeting friends, then we find them to be extremely successful here in our kindergarten classrooms.
I love that. And I know that we could have a separate conversation just about funding, but if I, pared it down, would you say that the 6-week to 3-year-old right prior to your pre-K program is tuition based?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
It is tuition based, and that tuition simply covers the, we are able to have a lead teacher and an assistant teacher in all of our classrooms, and that just pays for them, for their salary.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. One of the things, this is a great transition. You'd think we practiced this, right? So one of the things that Amanda talked about was her parent workshops. And so I'd like to turn the conversation to how are we supporting parents, and the way we support parents, does it look and feel different or not than maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago. I know one of the things that Amanda shared with me was, in her parent workshop, she's having to do more modeling and actually walking them through what it needs to look and feel like. What she's explaining may not be as intuitive as maybe parents, again, 15, 20 years ago. Laura, I'm going to have you share next about working with parents, and then talk a little bit about the ECFE program and what they do in Minnesota to help.
Sure. I'll start by like what I think for working with parents.
Sure.
We just really encourage parents to put their phones away and to put kids' tablets away when they are at home. And obviously everybody needs a little break and everyone's entitled to their whatever minute of downtime, but really encouraging parents to take advantage of like waiting at a restaurant, play tic-tac-toe, or practice writing their name if they're not in school yet. If you're at the grocery store, encouraging them to count the apples as they put them in the bag, or look at the colors and pick out what color cereal you want, or whatever the case may be. And so kind of encouraging parents to really grasp onto those teachable moments. And if they happen 1,000 times a day, if you're aware of it and you really think about going on a walk and talking about the colors of the leaves and how many bunnies did you see, and how many stars are on the flag, whatever it might be. Learning can happen throughout the day, and just remembering to always talk to the children, even when they're babies. And just my family makes fun of me because we have a dog and I talk to her all the time, like I did to my children. And my husband's like, she's not going to talk, right? Like she's not going to read and she's not going to talk. And I don't know, maybe, but I just think if you are like telling about your day or how you're making brownies or whatever you're doing, that communication is so key, because they're hearing words, they're seeing your face, they're seeing how you form sounds, and all of those things are so important in those early years before they get to kindergarten.
And tell us a little bit about the ECFE.
Yes. So Minnesota has early childhood education, early childhood family education, ECFE, and it's offered through every school district. And like you go home from the hospital with a flyer about it. And everybody does it. They make it very accessible. They have evening classes for working parents. They have daytime classes if you're staying home with your child. Nannies can bring the child. They do parent education pieces, as well as parent and child doing things together, and some chances for you to separate from your child. And like I was a stay-at-home mom, and so that was really my kids' first chance to separate from me and learn some of that independence, because they were not going to daycare. And it starts at like 6 weeks, and it is offered birth to 5. And I cannot say enough about the program. I thought every state did it. And when I found out they didn't, I just couldn't believe how lucky we are here in Minnesota that this is offered. And the things that you learn are just so valuable. And I was telling Stephanie, you form such friendships with these other parents because you're in the thick of it together. And so many people have friendships that start when my son, they were 1 and now they're turning 17. And the mom and I have been best friends all these years because we bonded over these screaming 1-year-old baby boys. So it's a really unique program, I think, and so helpful. It has a lot of the components that you are all talking about, and it's giving that access to all parents right in their school district, which is great.
I love that. And I do think it ties together what we've been talking about, the continuity of care. And I also think from a healthcare perspective, one of our goals is to be able to inform families and caregivers and to allow them to advocate for their children's needs. And so we know that 80 to 85% of the brain is being developed in those first 3 years. And at kindergarten, we're not getting them until they're 5.5 years old. And so if we don't start intervening early, we've missed a prime opportunity to really kind of, reset that course of action. Some children are not going to need any kind of specialized services if we can do some early intervention on. And so the ECFE would allow for one, just being able to socialize with other peers, for a mom to be able to see how other children are growing and developing with their language and physical development. But two, there's a mechanism built into there so that if there are some developmental concerns, that you've got the resources and the skill set and the professionals built into that so that you can get that early intervention and support that you need well before waiting until you start kindergarten and then going through the process at the school level. So I think that's fantastic. Dana, do you and Tawanda want to talk a little bit about the programs that you're offering through the ELC to support families and caregivers?
Yes, we would love to. But I will just go back to Miss Laura. When you were talking, I was just, so from a personal perspective, I became a Mimi. My grandson is going to be 2. And I know when my daughter first had the baby, she left the hospital and she thought I was crazy because I'm like, I'm going to change your diaper. And I'm looking like I did all of those things. But to be honest, for a minute, it took me a minute to recall all the things I should be doing. So even as an early educator, sometimes we don't remember some of those little things that some of our providers may have told us or the teachers have told us. So just keeping that in mind as a family, it's okay to not know everything. It's okay. Just keep having those meaningful interactions with the child. Just talk to them about the day, like you said. But as a grandparent, it took me a minute, and I just thought that was really on point, exactly what you said about sometimes they think you're crazy talking to your dog. I do the same thing. So we're in the same boat. But in our community, we have some challenges with care for specifically probably for infants and toddlers. There's some affordability challenges. So we work a lot with our families, specifically the education team and our community outreach specialists, with ensuring that the families know what to do within their home. Developmentally appropriate practices, not just from an academic perspective, but the social aspect. When you're driving in the car, look at the McDonald's. When you're like having those meaningful conversations, being present, asking questions, recognizing their feelings. So really exactly what you were saying, Laura, but we do that within our community with events at local businesses, with community partners, with other nonprofits. We have a lot of other great organizations in our community that do family engagement events or workshops for those families. So we have internally tried to we're brainstorming ways on how do we bring that all together so the family can come to one place and get all the cool things that the community is doing to support the learning for the children prenatally, because we know prenatally how important that is, all the way through kindergarten and beyond. Do you agree?
Absolutely. And one thing, when you were talking, Laura, I thought about something that we just started developing in the education department is a reflection sheet, because it's just a kind of like a little personalized journal with just a few questions for families. When this happens with a child, what does that make you feel? Because we as parents, caregivers, no matter who we are, we have to look at ourselves, and sometimes what we think may be disruptive or not appropriate or whatever it may be because of us, because of how we feel personally about it. So it's just an opportunity for us to pause as the caregiver and look and reflect. So that's an important piece, I think, in this whole journey.
Yeah, and the state of Florida has the New World Reading Initiative, so they have a lot of programs. There's a lot of support with the Division of Early Learning and the Department of Education when it comes to the family engagement piece and really just honing in on that partnership.
Wonderful. And Amanda, I think that we've already highlighted some very innovative practices that your particular school district, Calhoun City Schools, which is in Gordon County, Georgia, I feel like that is a concept that could quickly spread because it's a doable thing. It's very doable, and it meets the needs of what we've talked about here together, connecting the dots with those service agencies, bringing everyone together, having continuity of care and curriculum. And children, and I believe you mentioned this earlier, Dana, with data, children don't have to go into a formalized school setting at 2, 3, and 4-year-old, into 4-year-old classrooms. to get the skill set that they need to be successful in kindergarten. But that is offered for families because families have different needs, but it is not a requirement. But what I'm hearing you say, and we've got just a couple minutes left, let's close out and go around the room and share 1 to 2 just very practical tips or a strategy that you could encourage a parent that may be listening that they could do today, whether they have a 6-day-old or a 6-year-old or 3 or 4 in between. What is something that you would encourage a parent to do that could help them? Amanda, we'll start with you.
Absolutely. So I think if I could give a tip to a family member, I would say to when you're driving around the community to look at the signs and point out colors and read the signs to your children and talk to them about what they mean. And when you're at the grocery store, buying groceries for the week, talk to them about, what you see and the prices and just have real life, authentic conversations with them about things that you're doing each and every day. And obviously, if they're kindergarten age, if you can have an opportunity for a teachable moment within that, we would absolutely appreciate that, whether that be counting or, singing your ABCs or saying, oh, that starts with this letter or it rhymes with such and such letter, singing a song in the car. Just that authentic conversations that you can have with your child are really going to be essential.
Thank you. Laura, what about you?
I was thinking along those same lines. I always think talk to them, sing to them, read to them. So just as she was saying, talk about everything you're doing. Everything can be made into a song. All of my kids had a song about how their name was spelled. And to this day, they will sing it to be silly, but just making songs for them and then reading to them. Read. When I had my first baby, we went to New York. She was 6 weeks old, and I brought all these books on the plane. And I sat and read to her. I'm sure people thought I was crazy, but it was so important to me. We read before she slept, and that's what we were going to do on that plane. So just read.
Yeah. Well, Laura, I'll say this, you mentioned early on in our conversation, rituals and routines, and books, reading or singing can be the routine that you implement in your home. Like we sing before bath time, we read before bedtime, that is building in those routines through reading or singing. Something else you mentioned, Laura, that I think is a great tip for parents. If you are looking at your phone to check a message or directions, you are not facing your child. And when children learn speech and language, they have to see your whole face. So there's research out to say that although we blame a lot on the decline in language development because of the pandemic, it actually started before that with the increase of technology as a distraction with all families across socioeconomic levels. When we're not turning to face the person we're speaking with, we shut down half of the learning and language that's occurring between the person talking and the child receiving. So thank you for that, Laura.
Very true. Mm-hmm.
And then Dana and Tawanda, will you finish us out with a tip or 2?
Yep, we'll talk fast. No,
Okay.
kidding.
Yeah.
Yes, everything that Miss Laura and Miss Amanda said, my view would be present, to be a part of that conversation with that child. But I also would say from a personal perspective too, don't be afraid to ask for help. If you
Yeah.
don't understand what we're talking about today on this call, ask someone. There's probably some resources within the community that could potentially help with that. If not, you can always reach out to us or Miss Stephanie Montgomery or anyone. But it's okay to not know. But I would encourage you to just ask, and I'm sure somebody is more than happy to help you with that. I think everyone in the community that's in the early learning space or even public K through 12, whatever, genuinely want to help our families help grow our littlest citizens.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say make that partnership. You are in a partnership with your child's other caregivers, whether that's their pediatrician, their teacher, their child care provider. So make that partnership and trust your gut as a parent.
Very sage advice. Thank you all so very much for joining us today. I appreciate the expertise that you bring to the table, the different perspectives, and I hope that anyone listening can take away just one or two things, either to use themselves or to share with someone else. You found us through some social media platform, but if you're not following us across multiple platforms, we are on the ones listed here on the screen. We would love for you to follow us, and more importantly, share it with a friend, parent, colleague who could benefit. We are able to push out tips and strategies, just like we've talked about here today, through Instagram Reels, through Facebook, through TikTok. We have podcasts that we are doing. You'll want to join us next month as we delve into supporting moms and maternal mental health. And that's a very important topic because we know that an engaged, supported family is going to help a child thrive. So be sure to join us next month. And then, as Dana mentioned, if you have any questions or want any follow-up connections, my contact is here at Stephanie@buildabrainnow.com or info@buildabrainnow.com. Either one can get you to me, and I'll be glad to connect you with any of our expert panelists here today, or you have further questions. So thank you so much for being here today. I hope you have a wonderful day, and thank you for all you do to support our children.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Stop recording, and we're good. Thank you all, ladies, so much for being here, and I'll follow up. Let me